There we go. We all good? Right, so I've just been handed this, which is a bunch of community questions. This is a good opportunity for me to answer them properly while I'm here. I've had a very brief skim through these, and that's it. So this is pretty much fresh to me now. So here we go. First one, what problems with 1.5 were you most concerned with addressing when writing 2.0? Good starter. So Fleet, the original version of Fleet, I liked the game. It was good. Its major problem was it just took too long to play. There were too many sticking points, too many moments where you were like, let's stop the game and resolve this thing, and let's stop the game, resolve this thing. We played in some tournaments. I've played a few tournaments, and you'd struggle to complete a game in like 3 hours, even if both players really knew what they were doing. And that's just a bit too slow for a modern war game, I think. So we're focused largely on streamlining, but not in a way that dumbed the game down. There's an important difference between streamlining and dumbing down. A lot of the time, the end result of what we've done is the same as it would have been previously. It just now, instead of rolling 20 dice, you roll 2. Or instead of 3 separate dice rolls, there's now just 1. That sort of thing. But when you actually run the maths, it's the end result is very similar or the same. Various other moments where the game would stick, we kind of tried to get rid of those, just make it a lot smoother, a lot more streamlined. Lots of other changes too. I'm going to do, straight after filming this, I'm going to go through the new book and go over all the things that we've changed, all the major things. So probably watch that one when that video comes out. That's going to cover some more nitty-gritty about the rules, but generally that's the idea. Plus, making a bunch of improvements that I was really keen to make. Like, a big random example would be fighters and bombers, that they stick around now. In the old edition, they felt more like guns, and they may as well have been guns. Like, yeah, sometimes they stayed on the board for one turn before they would resolve, but they were still kind of like guns, and now they behave more like actual fighters and bombers. So you deploy them, they can move independently, you can build up a big wing for multiple carriers, and a big wing will hit harder for various reasons in the rules, but you can then fly those around, asteroid belts, scenery, things like that. Carriers, if you want to be cautious with them, which you probably should be because they're expensive in points, because they're all, frankly, a little bit more tactically useful now than they used to be, but you can sit at the back and just send out waves of fighters and bombers, build them up over turns. So that's completely different, the way that works in this edition, but there's a lot more than that we've improved, changed, stuff I've always wanted to do with the game. And you'll see that, and I'll cover some more of it in that next video. So that's big answer, but that's a big question. Next one, how does the new activation work? It's alternate activation like it was before. Battle groups are gone. There's not battle groups anymore. It's done by group. When you actually look at it, a lot of the time you don't have like 30 groups. You're going to have more activations than you used to have, maybe 10, I don't know, 15 max maybe in a tournament game. It's not loads, so there's a bit more back and forth, but you're activating less each time. You're not doing the planning phase anymore, that's gone, so you're reacting more in real time. The planning phase was one of those things. It's another one of those stop the game moments. I did like it strategically, like that whole feel that you're planning out everything in advance. I do like that, but also it's just another layer that wasn't really necessary, and you can react more to your opponent in real time, which, there's pluses and minuses there. Crucially, you can't activate your opponent out-activate your opponent, because there's no rule, pass tokens, that if your opponent has more groups left than you do, you gain a few pass tokens, so you can spend a pass token instead of activating. So you can't write a list to take advantage of this new system, because your opponent's just going to get pass tokens to get past that. So you can't break the game that way. Next one, is there any rules for traffic jams? Always the funniest typo we've ever done. Sort of, yeah. So you can't put ship bases on top of other ship bases anymore. If a base would overlap, you have to move to the next point that they wouldn't overlap, effectively. So you can't stack up ships in piles. There's going to be moments where, say, if it's a battleship that comes right up next to another battleship, and the miniatures, because they're huge, might actually overlap. There might be moments when you have to take the model off the flight stand or something like that, but it's the base that matters. in the rules, and they can't overlap in this edition. What happened to close action weapons and point defense? Well, close action weapons still exist. They're still in the rules. They still fire at scan range just like they used to, but now they're more like regular guns. They take up normal gun firing slots. So if you can fire, say, 2 weapons and you've got 3 guns and one of them's close action, one of those is just treated like any other gun. Now, apart from the range, there's a few other things that affect only close action weapons, but that's getting into the nitty-gritty. Point defense, though, point defense is now rolled up into your kinetic and energy saves, which are a new mechanic in this edition. So we haven't just taken things out, we've added stuff too. So now all weapons are either kinetic or energy weapons, and you use the appropriate save against them. You use your energy save against an energy weapon, and you might have an energy close action weapon or a kinetic close action weapon, in which case you're using the appropriate save. There's also core weapons that bypass both, and you can only use backup saves against those. So point defense is a prime example of slowing the game down, and wow, did it slow the game down. There's a lot of moments like, right, I've been hit by this close action weapon, I rolled 2 point defense dice that are on a 5+, and maybe you'll get 1, and then you've got to apply that and then have less save. That's all gone. Now it's fluff-wise, it still exists, it's just rolled up into that save, effectively. So if a ship has a ton of point defense, lasers, say, it might have pretty good kinetic save because it's got a ton of point defense lasers. That kind of thing. It's all wrapped up into those stats now, which makes things a lot more streamlined. Next one, will Dreadnoughts become plastic? I would love Dreadnoughts to be in plastic. Obviously, we've skipped right past other things there, which I'll talk about at some point. Dreadnoughts, the important thing about Dreadnoughts is they're huge. Like, that's a big model, and it's going to need at least 2 sprues per Dreadnought to do. So I would love to do it. I'm not currently working on them right now, but it's obviously something we're aware of, and we would love to do it. So we'll see about that. But it won't be for any, it's not around the corner. Let's put it that way. And has strategy rating been removed from the game altogether? Yes, it has. You do have an admiral value, and your admiral value does make a difference to certain things like initiative. You can spend your admiral value generates command points, and you can spend those on certain abilities during the turn. So having a high level command factor is relevant. But yeah, strategy rating is no more. There are certain moments where heavy ships go later. That's getting into the nitty gritty, but yeah, that's not in there anymore. We've heard recent PHR lore videos, some suggestions that the PHR have a schism, which might explain mirror matches in game. Shaltari Resistance have never had unity of purpose for mirror matches to be odd. They don't. Shaltari can cheerfully fight other Shaltari, same for the Resistance. Will there be similar divides within another UCM and Biophysa regimes to make mirror matches fit the canon? So I'm working on things like sub-factions. That's been in my head for a long time, fluff-wise and potentially rules-wise as well. Obviously, mirror matches are sometimes fluff-wise a bit strange, but I'm going to be working on that. So watch this space is probably the best answer to that, but the PHR schism is a good example of a moment where that has in fact happened. The PHR is now split into two sides, effectively. One side that has followed the White Sphere nearly religiously and has retreated back to their home planets for a reason, and the other half have decided to stick with the Alliance and stay with their allies, the UCM, and fight for Earth, and they're a little bit wary of how the Sphere is treated as such a religious object these days. It's almost religious, it's like quasi-religious, but it's getting that way, and they're feeling a bit uncomfortable about that. So yeah, the new background gets into that some more. But next one, can we expect new plastic sprues for the other factions, cruisers and frigates, or are the UCM the only ones getting a refresh? So if you don't know this already, the UCM have had a refresh, the cruisers and the frigates. The old sprue used to be a cruiser sprue and a frigate sprue. We now have one sprue that contains 1 cruiser and 2 frigates. The cruisers and the frigates have been redesigned. The cruisers quite a bit cooler. You'll see that in a new video, I think. There's more options, they're more efficient to build, they have less parts sometimes without sacrificing any detail or any choice, which is cool. The sprue is smaller, there's less waste plastic. It fits in our new boxes, which is cool. So all of those things are great, and we would love to have that for all the factions, for sure. And it's hopefully something we're going to do. I can't say when. We obviously already have plastics for those factions, and they're perfectly good plastics. There's nothing wrong with them. So getting everything in plastic is important. So we'll see on that front, I think. But I've got a lot of ideas, and I'd love to do that. So yeah, watch this space for that one as well. How is fleet building going to work in the new edition? In brief, you build your fleet around medium ships. That's cruisers largely. So the number of cruisers you take then dictates how many things you can take of other things like light ships, dreadnoughts, battleships, all of those kind of things. You can't have a whole fleet of battleships. You can't have a whole fleet of frigates. You've got to have a core of cruisers, and you build around that. There's a few other restrictions as well, but in general, that's what you're looking at. Next one, I noticed a bit more deco influence in the graphic design so far, which I was happy to see. It was always present, but wasn't emphasised quite as heavily as I would like. Do you plan to push it more as the forefront of the core aesthetic for the setting and game? Absolutely, yes, definitely. That's drop zones visuals have always been a bit deco, and I never really got as much deco into the original books as I would have liked. Deco is definitely like a core of the UCM's architectural style and the pre-war stuff, which is ultimately resistance now, and all of the ruins that they're fighting over. So deco is our thing, and yes, expect to see more deco. Little design touches. The new book is full of it. The new packaging even has some. There's some nice textures on the side. We've got up here, right? So there's some new deco there. There's some new deco on the back. It's little things, but deco is an important aesthetic for us. So yeah, expect to see more of that. Next one. Will the rulebook be free online again? Yes, at some point it will be. Free downloadable rules are nice because people can look at the game before they play it, which is cool. It's not going to be there at launch, but it will be there at some stage because we know its importance. Next one. Are we getting faction-specific launch asset packs? Currently, we obviously have the launch assets brew for it's strictly speaking, they're UCM fighters and bombers, but they're so tiny. You can paint them different colours, and you can pretty much make them work for any of the fleets, which is what they were designed for in the first place. I'd like to do faction-specific ones at some point. If you're interested, let us know, and if loads of people are screaming for faction-specific launch assets, then you'll probably get them, because they're actually the relevant thing here, like I said previously, is launch assets now stick around in the game, so it's actually much more worthwhile to have tokens for launch assets now than they used to be. Half the time in the old edition they would resolve and they'd be gone. Now they're sticking around and they're doing things, so it's cool to have miniatures for them. So yeah, there's a damn good reason for us to do them. So we'll see. What is the biggest animal you can fight? You can beat in a fight with your bare hands. Right, I'll go great white shark, because you can fight a great white shark by punching it in the eye, and apparently that is your best chance of survival. So it's a badass animal. So yeah, I'll fight a great white shark and probably die. There you go. Next one. What specific changes have been made to speed up ground combat? So that's a good example to end on as far as streamlining goes. So ground combat was a prime example of something that a lot of players were like, yeah, it's cool that it's there, but oh god, there were multiple different versions and there was movement and it was clunky. Now you're literally resolving one against the other. It's a single dice roll or sometimes no dice roll. It depends on certain things. There's only one type of ground token. It's battalion now. That's it. You have battalions, and that's that. They can do a bit more actually in this edition than they could before, and in some cases they're more important. But the resolving of combat is very much simplified. But most of the time, 7 times out of 10 perhaps, the end result is the same with the new rules that it would have been with the old rules. It's just taking you a ton less time to resolve. End of turn, you still resolve your ground combat at the end of turn like you used to, but it's a case of go round, resolve this one, boom, that's done, next one, boom, that's done. There's still a little bit of movement within sectors and within drop sites. They're called drop sites now. That cities and space stations are all drop sites. There aren't separate sectors necessarily in every one anymore, so that's simplified as well, but there's more to it than that. There's features which I'll be covering. If you watch the Biophyser fleet intro, is probably a good place where that's probably the first time I'll really talk about those, but features are going to be a major part of this edition and they're new. And factions will be able to deploy features, which is a new thing. So ground combat is being shaken up, but not necessarily is still there, and it's still an integral part of the game. So that's those. I hope those were good answers for you. I'll probably end up doing another one of these at some point. Feel free to send in questions, and whenever I get a chance, I can answer them. Maybe do another one of these at some point if you enjoyed it. So yeah, see you later.